Ohio high school football. It's a juggernaut each and every week. I'm going to take you on an inside look at the high school coaching world. In the world of high school coaching, there is far more than what people see after 7 p.m. on a Friday night. This is the Coach's Approach.
Welcome to the Coach's Approach, a podcast where we sit down with high school coaches and get the cold, hard facts about the high school coaching world. This is the Coach's Approach, where we talk X's and O's. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is the Coach's Approach, where we talk the X's and O's. Win the day or dominate the day. The choice is yours.
Hello to all of our listeners and welcome to the Coach's Approach podcast. I'm your host, George Gresco, and I'm absolutely pumped for this show. Today in the coach's booth for episode 4, Diving In with Dodd, I get to sit down with Eastlake North head football coach Shawn Dodd. Coach Dodd, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're getting into Eastlake North football today, so it's going to be an exciting one. Before we get started, I need to shout out our sponsors, Anthony's Family Restaurant on the corner of 91 and Vine Street in Eastlake, where together is our favorite place to be. Open for dine-in, carry-out, and curbside pickup. Also, G&G Printing. Get your custom apparel printed in 7 to 10 days or less. Dominate your design. Speaking of Anthony's Family Restaurant, it's right in Eastlake. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, multiple times.
Absolutely.
Great little
Great
spot
food.
there, right in the corner of Vine and 91.
Absolutely. Getting into your coaching career, you started your coaching career at Euclid High School. You were a Panther from 2000 to 2006. Can you talk a little bit how you wound up at Euclid?
Yeah, so I was pretty fortunate when I graduated college, or actually when I was still in college, I was doing my student teaching and they offered me a teaching position. So second week into my student teaching, I was already offered a teaching job without ever applying or anything. So I was pretty fortunate. So once I got that, I reached out to Mike Rizzola, the head coach at the time, and asked about either volunteering for middle school or just helping out in some way, shape or form. Really had no desire to be a high school coach. I always just wanted to be a middle school coach. And he offered me a freshman position. So I did that for 3 years, and then I got the bug once I got going. I was fortunate to coach for Coach Rizzola and a great staff there. And
that's awesome. So, you get hired right away after student teaching
I was
for 2 weeks.
Very cool. Lucky. You know, I when I graduated college, all the baby boomers were retiring. So there were a lot of teachers being hired. And just the school I went into in Forest Park, just that school alone, I went in with, I think, 17 teachers just in that one building in 1 year. So
that's
there's
a lot of teachers
at
one time.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate.
Which is sometimes that's probably a good thing because you had all hired at the same time, kind of help each other.
It was awesome.
Out, you know?
Yeah, it was young staff, both coaching and teaching. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings me into there was another coach at Euclid at that time that taught there. I think it was the same time you were. It was Jeff Grubich. You guys have coached against each other multiple times. The reason I bring this up is because you guys say this term slappy all the time. And I kind of want to know how that term slappy originated.
So I'm going to give the credit to that one, to Grub. So going back to our Euclid days, we taught together. So I taught 6th grade social studies and Grub had 7th grade social studies, and we were both at Forest Park together.
Okay.
And at the time I was coaching at Euclid, he was coaching at Mentor. So we were rivals on those Friday nights for that 1 week, but we were in the same conference and we'd share a lot of film and ideas. And so we were the young guys. We were just the slappies, freshman coaches and then JV guys and just assistants. And so we were together for about 10 years at Euclid, and we were kind of locked down in the library so we can collaborate as teachers and have our kids work together. And while they were doing that, we may have talked a little bit about football on some of those Fridays together. So I've known Grub a long time.
So when I was coaching with Grub, he would always slap you, get over here. I'm like, I need to know because I knew you guys said the same terms a lot of times. So I had to ask that.
Yeah, I probably stole it from Grub. I'll give Grub all the credit for that one.
After your years at Euclid, you become an assistant at NDCL High School. You were at NDCL from 2007 to 2010. Who did you coach under while at NDCL?
Byron Morgan.
Okay,
yeah,
and that's what I thought.
Morgan.
I just wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then was Steve Taringo there when you were
Yeah,
there?
so there's another crossover with Grube and the Kenston staff. So Tango was the DC
Yep.
when I was an assistant out there at
And
NDCL.
yeah, and I had to ask that because Steve's a great guy. He's been around the game for so long.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot when I was over at Kenston. Actually, I was thinking about it as I was writing this. I'm like, I need to get him probably on the show.
Absolutely.
NFL
He'd be-
alum, he's been coaching
Yes.
at that level.
And he's probably nearing 40 years of coaching.
Yeah, he's got to be up there like with Chuck Kyles.
Yes,
and
and
he's
he's one of the
retiring
best.
after next season. Chuck Kyles.
Yes.
Outstanding.
Yeah, Tango's awesome. He's one of my favorite people.
Yeah, he's a great guy. You were an assistant both at NDCL and Euclid, as we talked about already. You were an assistant for 10 years. During your time at NDCL, were you gearing up to become a head coach? Is that something that you wanted to be at that time?
So once I got to NDCL, yes. So at Euclid, like I said, when I first started off, I only wanted to coach middle school. I wanted to be around for my kids and not miss anything. And I knew they were going to be involved in a lot of sports. And so there was a time I was at a clinic down in Columbus, and I was at Euclid, and I was a varsity assistant at the time. And I was thinking about stepping back and doing middle school. My oldest son, Zach, was about to become a middle school athlete. I didn't want to miss anything. And I'll never forget my head coach, Ranger, Coach Dan Kakura. He pulled me aside at a clinic and started asking me about future and if I wanted to ever be a head coach. I was like, well, coach, actually, I'm thinking about doing the opposite and stepping down and going back towards middle school. I don't want to miss anything for Zach, and eventually Ty and Jess will be older, and I don't want to miss anything. I want to be at everything. And
Absolutely.
I'll never forget. I give this to a lot of young coaches that kind of go through that same kind of crisis when their kids get a little bit older about missing things. And Coach Kakura flat out told me, he's like, listen, before you were a husband or a father or Zach was around or Ty and Jess, he's like, you had own dreams and goals, and you're allowed to fulfill those. So that always stuck with me, and that was kind of like a light bulb.
I think that's pretty good advice from your former coach. I talked to my former coach, George Burek, and he'll be on the show sometime down the line. But those are the guys you listen to the most.
Yes.
Especially me and Burek. He's a second father to me, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He gave you that advice.
Yeah, and that's always stuck with me, and that's something I share with everybody, because it literally was like a light bulb went off. I was like, you know what? He's right. I can do this. And I might have missed a handful of things, and my kids have all played 3 sports, all 3 of them, and
Yeah.
I could
Between
count the
Ty
number
and
of
Jess,
games.
I mean, they were playing everything, every
Yeah.
sport possible. So
Yeah.
you're running around.
Yep. So somehow we were able to make it work, and now Ty's coaching with me and
Yeah, we'll get into that too. Absolutely.
so that's always kind of worked out. But yeah, once I got that, then I was like, you know what, I think I do want to do this. And Byron Morgan was very, very supportive of that and gave me a lot of responsibility.
That's a good head coach to
Coach
work under
Taringo.
too. Byron Morgan, he knows his stuff.
Intense. He was fun.
Yeah,
He was
absolutely.
fun.
I was at one camp one time with Byron Morgan. I didn't even know who Coach Morgan was at the time. I just remember him chewing out one of the coaches. It wasn't even a player; it was his coach.
He was not
Solid
afraid to do
instrument.
that. I loved it.
How
I
funny.
loved it. I really enjoyed coaching with Coach Morgan.
So that leads me to Gilmore. You landed your first head coaching job at Gilmore High School. You were hired at Gilmore in 2011 as the head football coach. Prior to you getting hired at Gilmore, the Lancers were 1-9 overall. Then you get hired and you rack up a 21-21 record over a 4-year span. How did you approach building up the Gilmore program? It was a struggling program at that time.
Yeah, at the time it was. The numbers were real low. There might have been 23 kids in the program, somewhere around there. And they're open and honest with me, like, hey, we got to take some time to build this, be here for a while and stick around. And it just takes some time, and we're going to support you. I was very fortunate to have a great support system from the top down. The school was very supportive of giving me some slack and let me do things my way. Our athletic director, Jeff Walrich, was incredible. He was a fantastic guy to work for, and Christy Brewer, who's the assistant athletic director. And I had a great staff that really bought in, and they knew we were going to struggle those first couple of years. Like when we walked in and started looking at film, when we started getting out in the practice and stuff, like, boy, this is a young group. We knew there was some talent, but they were just really young, and we got whacked our first season.
Yeah.
When we see the guys now, we'll laugh at the kids, because as a staff, we would watch film and we'd be like, man, we might lose 60-0. But the kids, when we were in practice, and credit to our staff was awesome. Those guys had the kids believing. Every week they went in thinking, hey, we're gonna win this game. But as a staff, we're like, oh boy, this is gonna be tough. But we didn't let that in with the kids. And so we took our lumps, and then we really, really worked hard with having different camps up at Gilmore to get people on campus. It's a beautiful place. And once kids step foot on campus, they really want to be a part of that. And
That's awesome.
the parents were very supportive and they were really patient. They knew what was happening there and what we were trying to accomplish. And then we were able to just get numbers in. We were starting to get more and more kids in. The numbers built up. Those young kids that we kind of took our lumps with the first 2 years became seniors eventually. It was a pretty talented group. And then the football gods smiled on us and Chanel closed. And we got two of their
players. Yeah, you guys got a few kids.
Yeah, Roselle Dolphin and Ishmael Hargrove, and those are two really, really good football players.
Yeah, mention that.
Yep. So you add those two into the mix, and all of a sudden we're an 8-2, and we're winning in the playoffs, and so that was an exciting time. But it took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of patience.
And that's always a good thing too, is when your higher ups or administration, principal, athletic director supports you and kind of let it run its course and kind of do how you want to do it. Essentially.
Yeah. Case in point, our first game, we went out and we lost. I think it was to Beechwood. Like 55
was this
to nothing.
Game at Beechwood?
It was at Beechwood. You might have been there.
And I'm pretty sure that's why I think I was there, because that's what my first year ever coaching was coaching Tyler. And you're like, oh, come over and help. I think that was the game I was at. I almost positive.
Yep. And Christy Brewer was the kind of an interim AD at the time. I think they were searching for ADs and she was the assistant. And she came running over. I'm like, oh my God, here's my first game. We get blown out. I'm going to get fired. And she came up and gave me a big hug. And she's like, please don't quit. You need to stick around.
Sure.
Don't give up on us. We told you it would be hard. And that kind of gave me a lot of confidence. I was like, okay, at least I know I have the support, and that really kind of motivated us as a staff a little bit more. And
that always makes you feel better too. You have that support system behind you. Even win, lose, draw, it doesn't matter. And then you have that support system, which is
I thought I was getting canned. I thought that was it, one and done. And there's my career. Where's Coach Kakura and that advice at now?
Yeah, right.
But it worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. In 2013 and 2014, while at Gilmore, you had two special seasons. Over those two seasons, the Lancers went 17-5. I always say after those first two seasons, in year 3 and 4, that's where you kind of see the noticeable change in a program. Can you talk a little bit about that 17-5 span in 2013 and 2014?
Yeah, it boils back to day one, getting hired and having that support. You know, having everybody there believing in the mission and what we're trying to do and our way of doing things. And, you know, everybody uses kind of the term our way, but, you know, we had to be kind of a blueprint that we wanted to follow. And there was some talent there. They were just young. So it was just waiting for those guys to mature and get older enough to be the seniors and time in the weight room. And so it starts with the support. We have the talent. You know, you're not going to win without talent. You got to have a little luck involved. We stayed healthy. That was a big part of it too. An incredible staff that really cared about the kids and put in the time. And so that first playoff run, it was a very senior heavy team with a lot of talent. And we knew we were going to be pretty good going into that season. We had a lot of high expectations for ourselves. Maybe not too much outside of us, but we knew like, hey, we're pretty good. And in that second year, we lost all those guys. So that was like kind of on us. It's the kids that came in under us. And we knew we were going to be really young. And we're like, all right, we're kind of going to go backwards again. We're going to be a really young team, a lot of sophomores.
And it's kind of good that you made the playoffs the year prior, because it kind of showed what they needed to do to get back to that point.
Yeah, kids have to learn how to win and how to compete. And so now they started learning those types of things. And with that young team, we didn't really have huge expectations going into that year 4, and nobody outside thought. I think we were fortunate to go 8-2 again. But Connor Lesko and Jonathan Abrams, they were two sophomores, a running back and quarterback that really did exceptionally well. And we got into the playoffs. We ran into a buzzsaw against Youngstown Liberty, I think it was at the time. They were.
I think it is. I wrote that down.
Lynn Bowden, that's all I remember. So for any of your listeners, look up Lynn Bowden's highlights. Outside of Robert Smith, he's probably the single best player I've ever seen. And
really?
He single-handedly took Chardon out. His senior, he ended up transferring to Warren Harding.
Okay.
So he left Liberty and ended up at Warren Harding, and then went on to Kentucky, then the Raiders. Wow. I think he's still in the league now. I'm not positive, but wow, he we're outmatched in that one.
And that's kind of how I feel. I look back at some of my highlight stuff, and I see Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this guy's
You've
just
seen-
unbelievable. I think I mentioned him in just about every show because I still have nightmares of him running up and
Yeah,
down
how
the
could
field.
you not?
And I was a quarterback, so I'm like, I had nothing. I couldn't do anything about it. So.
Yeah, you run into
Too
those
funny.
guys. You know, my playing days, I was fortunate to play against Robert Smith multiple times, and
Yeah.
you don't forget those guys.
No,
You know,
yeah.
your generation, you guys had Kareem Hunt,
Yeah.
and our little Gilmore guys got fortunate to see
Yeah, I
Lynn
was gonna
Bowden.
say, yeah.
Yeah,
How
Google him. He's his highlights are crazy.
Too funny. As I said already, in 2013 and 2014, you went 7-5. You broke all the school's offensive records. Then you go to the playoffs, back-to-back playoff berths, and you earned yourself the 2012 Coach of the Year award. How special was that award to you?
Yeah, it really meant a lot to us as a staff. For me, those are staff awards. I know they kind of put out one person's name, and that's truly not just coach talk and trying to be polite and humble. I mean, I really believe that. It takes a staff, as you know, it's not
Absolutely.
one person doing any of that. So our staff worked incredibly hard. And to go where we were when we got in at Gilmore, when they were back-to-back one-win seasons, to now back-to-back playoff teams and breaking records, and our staff winning a Coach of the Year award, it was awesome. Anytime we do anything like that for the first time, and that was the first place I was ever a head coach, and be able to get that award in year 3, I think it was pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
that would
awesome.
have been your third season at
Mhm.
Gilmore, that's pretty cool. I mean, year 3, you know, before you got there, they were 1-9, and you have your 2 years where you're trying to build up the program.
Yeah.
And in year 3, you go to the playoffs. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
And yeah, and there's a lot of self-doubt when you're going through all that. You know, that first year, I think we went 1-9 our first year, and like, boy, am I capable of doing this? Am I cut out to do this? Am I smart enough? Am I knowledgeable enough? Am I working hard enough? Like, I might be in over my head. And then you get to that year, and you know, all that hard work pays off. And like I said, there's some luck with being healthy and that type of thing. But the talent, you know, you have to have the talent. So the kids get the credit for being good athletes. But the school stuck with us. You know, they give us the opportunity to get to that point.
That's great. So I kind of want to tell you a little story. So when you were coaching at Gilmore, I was a senior in high school, and this is kind of how we first met. Whether you remember it or not, there was an all-star game, the Senior Bowl News Herald All-Star game at Menor High School.
Yes.
I quarterbacked the game. You were on George Burick's staff. So we actually won that game. We won 23-13. I actually have the game ball from that game.
That's
so I just kind of
awesome.
want to bring up that little story. I thought it was kind of cool, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if you remember that.
100% I remember.
Yeah, so I was just coming off my shoulder surgery, and that was actually my first time I really threw a football competitively in a game. And I remember you actually coached me a quarterback, I believe, in that game. So I just wanted to bring that up, little funny story.
Yeah. No, I remember it vividly. I remember meeting with Coach at his house. He's got like a theater room. I'm sure you've been there.
Oh,
Yeah. So we had a little meeting there. And I think if I remember, Coach Duff might have been an assistant on the team.
I think Duffy
maybe
was on
Coach-
the opposite team,
Was he
actually.
on the
So it was
opposite team?
actually
Yeah.
all Eastlake North staff. And then I think it was you and your offensive coordinator now, or quarterbacks coach.
Okay, maybe Coach Bednar.
Coach
Jason
Bednar, I
Bednar.
couldn't think of his name. So
Okay.
yeah, so he was there. I think it was all North guys coaching on a staff against the Gibbons, the Madison coach at the time. So it was like
Okay.
an all-star lineup staff versus all Eastlake
Bunch of
North guys.
slappies.
Which is, yeah,
Bunch of
slappies.
slappies.
So I thought that was kind of cool to bring up.
Yeah, I absolutely remember coaching that and coaching you in it. Yep,
And
absolutely.
we actually, based on the talent on the teams, we weren't supposed to win that game. We actually won 23-7, I think I said. So I just wanted to bring up that story.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. So let's get into what the people are looking forward to. Eastlake North football, home of the Rangers, the orange and black. You take over Eastlake North's football program. You get hired as the head coach in 2015. You were also an Eastlake North alum. You graduated from North in 1991. I wasn't even born yet. So how does that make you feel, Coach?
Not good. Not good at all.
Can you talk a little bit about the pressures you sometimes might feel coaching your alma mater, or just the burning drive you might have just because you want to win there so bad? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, as far as like pressure, it's very similar with Gilmore. I'm incredibly supported by our athletic director, Dennis Riley, and Eric Fry and Dr. Thompson in the district. They've been fantastic. And so there aren't any outside pressures in that sense, besides obviously wanting to do well and represent the district and those sorts of things. I think as coaches, we put more pressure on ourselves than any outside forces. So I always had that burning desire to win and compete. Like you said, it is important for me to try to get this program going, and we're still working towards that goal of winning and winning consistently and making the playoffs consistently. And I know that the whole thing has changed a little bit, that dynamic of how many teams get in, but probably a little bit more pressure being an alum and living in the community than it was at Gilmore, but it's internal. Like it's not put on me by an outside pressure. Except for my buddies. All my buddies I graduated with, we're pretty group.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I get that stuff a lot. They all come to the game, which is awesome. They support, and I'm fortunate to have those friends for such a long period of time. But yeah, they'll definitely ride me a little bit.
And you're always going to get that from your buddies.
Yeah.
No matter win, lose, or draw.
100%.
You don't win a game by 2 points. Well, you should have won by
14. We could go win a state title,
that.
and we won't win by enough for those guys. So they do it more just to kind of bust my chops.
Sure.
But yeah, probably a little bit more pressure than if I was at a school outside of North, only because it does mean so much to me being an alum. All my kids went there, and like I said, my buddies being there. So yep, for sure.
Cool. So you live in the school district, Willoughby Eastlake School District. You're essentially an Eastlake man. Your kids have grown up here and went to school here. Unfortunately, in 2016, tragedy struck your family. You lost your oldest son, Zach. He passed away at the age of 23. He was serving in the U.S. Navy. In an article I read, you said it's a battle you fight and struggle with each and every day. How important was it for you after tragedy struck your family to get back to some type of normalcy, back with the coaches in the coach's office, to get back to the weight room, to get back with just the guys on your team? How important was that?
Yeah, that was huge. I remember the whole process and everything vividly, and exactly how it all played out. And it'll always be a battle every single day. You know, there's something like that. You know, going through adversity yourself, it's not an easy thing. But I think I took I think it was 3 weeks is when I ended up being away. We were lifting at the time. It was in the spring. It was April, so we weren't involved in practice or anything. And I think my son Ty would have been a junior at the time. He might have returned back to school lifting before I did. But one, it was important for me, just for me personally, to get back into a routine and some normalcy, and start working through the grieving process and getting back to normal life. But it was also a kind of thought of I need to show my own children how you have to overcome these things. Like it would be, I could just curl up into a ball and people like it's okay and give sympathy and those types of things. And I didn't want that to be the example for my own children, but not only for them, but also for my players. You know, everybody kind of watches to see how you're going to react when you're in those kind of spotlight positions as a coach and as a father. And so I knew I had eyes on me on how I was going to react and respond to the situation. And, you know, I didn't try to hide anything or fake anything. I cried often in front of the kids. You know, I'm not afraid or ashamed to do that, to break down. And I wanted the kids to see me going through that process. I wanted to see them, have them see me kind of overcoming that type of thing and working through that. And just being that support system. You know, a ton of support at home with my family and with friends and, you know, outside of that also. But it was also important to be there for that support, and try to focus as best I could. Looking back, I was not focused. Looking back as a boy, I did a pretty bad job coaching.
Right.
You know, right, wrong, or indifferent. But I was definitely distracted for that year or so. But it was definitely important to get back and be a part of it. You know, as a coach, as a player, doing what we're doing right now, just being a part of something helps you get through those things.
Absolutely. I'm going to mention the story too that you kind of brought up. In 2012, my brother was killed. He was in the line of duty. He was a Willoughby police officer and a Cleveland Clinic police officer. But the morning after my brother's death, I actually found myself attending a JV North football game that Saturday morning. And that's because I wanted to be around the people that I knew cared about me the most. So I just kind of want to share that story. And I also want to say all the first responders, everyone in the military, thank you for what you guys do every day. Coach, you also had the opportunity to coach your youngest son, Tyler, which is a pretty cool situation for you. But I kind of wanted to ask, is that a blessing to coach your son, or was it difficult at certain times? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually for both my boys, Zach went to NDCL to begin with. So Coach Ringo and I coached Zach
I
at
remember that, yeah.
NDCL. Yeah, so I was able to coach Zach at
So
NDCL.
I remember we used to give him Zach crap because he was going to NDCL. They're like, "Oh, you're following your dad,"
Yep.
you know.
Yeah. So I was able to coach him, and then Ty started with me at Gilmore, and we gave him the option when I accepted the job at North. To Ty, you make the decision. You can stay here at Gilmore, or you can come to North. We'll let you decide that. And he said, "Well, Dad, I want to come play for you." I don't know if he'll repeat that now, but at the time, he thought it was a good idea. But yeah, so he came over and was able to coach him, and he was so easy to coach because, as you know, Ty, you've coached me. He's a pretty quiet, reserved guy.
Sure.
He's not going to complain, even if he wanted to say something bad, or
He'll turn around and walk away from you and you see him complain.
100%. So he's not one that's going to get combative with me, but we would communicate a lot, especially in the off season, about how we're going to handle the seasons and those types of things. And we left football at football. So when we got in the car, we got home, people always assume like, "Oh, do you guys just sit and watch football?" I don't know if I've ever sat and watched a football game with Ty. With Ty, it's dad and son. And when he was a player, he was always a position with somebody else. I didn't really cross paths with him too much as a player. And in games, I was there, but I didn't really get to watch him play. I was trying to really focus on and our staff did a great job of that too. We want to make sure that we've had, I think, 5 different coaches' sons play for us over the years. So we've really worked hard at that dynamic of not allowing that become a thing. And our staff has done a great job with that.
That's kind of cool because now you guys cross paths once again in the coaching world. Your son Tyler's now on your staff at North. Is that pretty cool coaching together?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So for I was just talking to Coach Fellenstein, who says hello. I will, absolutely. We were just talking about, raising kids and going back to beginning of our conversation about missing things. Well, my kids have always been a part of everything I've done with coaching. They were ball boys, and my daughter was a ball girl and water girl. And then I coached both my boys, and then my daughter broke my heart in middle school. She was like, "Dad, I don't want to be on the sideline. I want to be up in the stands with my friends now." So that broke my heart. But they've always been at practices, and so once just graduated North, there really wasn't like an attachment anymore from my kids to me coaching anymore. Nobody's a student there or playing for me. So Ty brought up the idea of coaching and wanting to get involved, which was a complete shock to me. It's something I never thought he would want to do. I never thought he had an interest in it, but I was ecstatic about it. I was super excited, and I tried to keep it low key. I didn't want to influence his decision or anything. But inside I was like exploding with joy. Like, man, this would be awesome if Ty decides to do this. And
cool.
So he put in his work for the first year and did a great job. And I told him, I said, somebody gave me advice years ago about just be yourself. Don't try to be another type of coach. And Ty and I have completely different personalities. He's very low key. Mm-hmm. He's a thinker, and I'm a little bit more emotional and rah-rah and that type of thing, and intense. So I said, don't try to emulate anything I do. You're a completely different personality.
Just do what do your own personalities.
And he did.
You become the coach that you want to be.
Yep. So so I was proud of him for that, and he would offer suggestions, and when we would shoot him down, he knew how to handle that part. That's part of it, So he did a great job, and I know he plans on continuing doing it. And selfishly, I'd love to see him stay involved. I think he's good for kids and good for community, and cares about North, and so it's worked out well. And selfishly, as a dad, I loved it. But we don't even go home, even as a coach. We don't really talk about game film, and I kind of leave him alone and let him come to me, because I don't bug my other coaches anymore. Right. So I'm not going to bombard him with it either.
Right. My first year as a volunteer coach, as I mentioned before, I actually had the opportunity to coach your son Tyler too. My first year coaching at Willow Middle School with Clendenning and Bubonics and those guys. And that's kind of where we met again as coaches. We mentioned already too. You got hired at Gilmore, and that's where I kind of hung around and watched how you guys kind of did stuff on Friday nights and Saturday mornings when you guys would play. That leads me to North's first ever playoff appearance in 2017. Can you talk a little bit about that playoff team and that senior class and how you guys kind of got to that playoff game?
Yeah, so we that was crazy. You talk about luck and staying healthy and that type of thing. So this was the complete opposite. We came in with some high expectations for us as a staff going in that year. We had some talented kids with Jake Tansky and Brad Burrows, Kenny Stroud.
I was going to say,
Ty
you had some great kids in that senior class. Before that, I was going to say is Klein, Hens, Burrows, Streb, and then your son Tyler. Those are the guys I kind of remember. But yeah, it's just a great class.
Yeah,
they?
Yeah, they're so talented, and so we get into we go through season or week 1 through 4, and by the time we got to week, I want to say it was week 5. We had, I think it was literally 22 kids out going into that game. We like Joe Ginter, Kyle Anderson, some of the kids that you coached that were
Kyle, Joe. I remember all those guys.
Those are all conference college football player type kids, and we didn't have any. We literally went into the South game. We literally didn't have a running back. We used my son Tyler, who wasn't a running back. Besides maybe
no, he's
8
not.
years old.
No, he's
yeah,
not.
maybe when he's 8, he might have ran with the ball, and so we ran a Luis Severino, who was a corner. We just tried different guys, and it just didn't work out. And I'll never forget after that game, we were 1-4. We pulled the seniors in. It was just me and the seniors. I closed the door and I said, "Guys, listen. Are we this bad? I know we've got some injuries. We got to find a way. But if we're this bad, just let me know and I'll back off. If not, I'm going to push you guys harder." And I'll never. And Luis Severino stood up. He says, "Coach, we're never going to lose another flipping game." And sure as heck, those guys they ran the table the rest of the year, and we ended up. I think the first one might have been Riverside. But then we went in. We were at home versus Brush, and they were putting up a video game.
That year at home, Kenston.
Yes.
Played you at North, and you guys were still banged up a little bit at that time, and we barely beat you guys. That tells you how good of a team you guys had without the injured guys playing. I think we won 21-18 or something.
Yeah, it was a close game.
It was a shootout, because I remember both Burrows and Kleinhans were blitzing A-gap and blitzing hard. I remember our guards after the game were like, "What the hell?" To just hit us, because they blitzed when they came. They blitzed hard.
Yeah. Those are great kids, and thankfully those two stayed healthy the whole time, because those are smart kids, tough kids, leaders. That class was just awesome. But yeah, so they figured it out. We adjusted some things. We kind of came up with call it a gimmicky offense. We literally called it brush and arcs because we put it in for that game. They were scoring like 50 points a game, and we were like, how the heck? We had to play keep away, and we were able to pull that game off and gave the kids a lot of confidence. And we finished out the season 6-4 after starting off 1-4, and we get in the playoff game. We're down 22-0.
Yeah, over at Bedford.
Yeah, and the kids tied it up, and we lost with 40 seconds.
Yeah, I remember that. And you guys had a chance to potentially win. If I believe, I remember Tansky had.
Yes, we had a chance at the end, and
yeah.
Even that game we lost another. So Luis Severino, our corner, went down that game. We put in our quarterback Jake Tansky at corner. First play, they hit a touchdown. So yeah, it was just one of those crazy. Those aren't excuses. It's just the way the season played out. But what a great group of kids, and again, year 3, kind of like Gilmore, and
sure.
So we were fortunate to be blessed with a great senior class that just.
And Burrows, I went on to play at Lake Erie, I believe, and had a pretty good career.
Mercyhurst.
Mercyhurst, that's what it was. I knew it was a green school. I knew.
Yeah, All-American. Kenny Streb just earned All-American at Ohio Wesleyan.
That's awesome. Good
so it's talented kids.
Yeah, and those are kids that worked hard, and they deserve everything they've gotten up to this point.
Yep.
The year you guys made the playoffs at North, you also earned the Division II Coach of the Year. You win the award once at Gilmore, and then now at North. What did that mean to you to win the Coach of the Year at your alma mater?
The first one was probably a little bit more. I don't want to say meaningful. I don't want to take anything away from the second one. The second one, not even so much just being at North and being an alum, but it was just and still is just a great appreciation of the kids that year because of the adversity. We also had 2 of our kids that year lost their dads, 2 of our senior leaders that season. Like I said, we had a lot of guys with injuries, season-ending ACL type things. So it was just a rough year. And for those guys to be able to overcome that, I have more pride in them just doing those types of things. The Coach of the Year, that's great, but that's a byproduct of what the kids did, of their resiliency. the staff believing and not giving up after starting off 1-4. And, as a coach, you start off 1-4 and you have all these guys hurt. It's easy to just
Especially
kind of
when
make
you're going to
excuses.
those conference games
Yes.
too,
Yeah. And you're still looking at Mayfield, Chardon, Riverside.
WRC, you guys run into that's a
a
juggernaut
gauntlet.
every week.
Yeah. So it was neat. I'm sure I got emotional that week 10 when we clinched and everybody stormed the field. Ty was a senior. My daughter was enrolled in school. She was a sophomore or freshman, so she was a student there. So she got to be a part of it in that sense. So it was cool as a family. But in retrospect, the pride is on the kids, not the award. Them overcoming all of that and stuff was
Absolutely.
it was a special year.
That's awesome. Coach, you've ran multiple different offenses over your time at North, and I joke with you all the time about this. You were spread at one time and then flex bone look at other times. Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of offenses that you've kind of been through?
Yes, we've adjusted a little bit with talent. We were pretty much spread and mostly gap scheme, some zone, but more of a gap guy. And so we run a lot of gap stuff. And then looking at what we knew we had coming up in our personnel and bringing in Brian Biggie, who's John Carroll, coached there for a long time. And his brother was a head coach at Welsh Jesuit for a while. And so, we were talking about, conference and what can make us competitive, and how do we kind of plug some of the holes that we have coming in these next couple of years. We spent a lot of time researching and studying the flex bone, and Biggie knows it. He's coached in that offense in the Columbus area for a long time in his earlier high school years before he was coaching at John Carroll, and really sold me the idea. And I love the flex bone. I think it's a fantastic offense. And so we dabbled in that for 2 years, and shame on me. I think I just made it a little bit too complicated, complex. It puts a lot on the quarterback the way we did it, which again is my fault, not to the kids or the staff. And but by doing it, I think we lost the kids' belief and faith in it. And then seeing what we had coming back this past season.
The flex bone, it's not an offense you can give up on. It's you gotta continue to have success and rep.
Yeah.
It's not an easy one to run.
No, it's not.
If you look at Chardon, luckily they run it. Well, there's a variation, but they run it.
Yeah, same ideas, same concepts.
They run it since 4 years old, so it's a little different.
Yeah, and that's the other part is, and this isn't a knock or an insult, but then trying to get middle schools and youth and trying to get all that up and running and change everybody's systems. And it just became a task that was like, okay, the time we're going to have to invest in this, are we going to get the buy-in at all levels from our own kids, from our own staff? And people started to waver a little bit. And then looking at what we had coming up, we just felt we were better off going in a different direction. And I still love the flex bone. So anybody running it or looking to run it, I think it's a fantastic offense. It's not that the flex bone is bad. I just think I did a bad job of implementing it into the program. So it was just time for us to move in a different direction.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings me in. You mentioned it's about your personnel and the guys, what offense you're going to run. You've had some monster linemen in recent years, with Ryan Bear being one of them. Ryan Bear is a 6'7", 320-pound lineman. He's had many Division I offers. He's now committed to the University of Pittsburgh. Can you talk a little bit about the recruiting process and how that went with Ryan? Yeah,
it was easy. Once anybody stepped on campus and saw how big he was as a freshman, it still just drives me nuts standing next to him. He laughs. He's got a deep voice and likes to call me Shorty and lean on me. And God, it just frustrates me. But so Ethan Spath, we had Ethan Spath the year before him.
I believe he went to Toledo.
Toledo, yeah. So he's at Toledo and he'll do great things there. And so when I started reaching out to schools, I'm like, hey, I've got these two young guys. I have a sophomore and a freshman that are just giants. And Spath was a quarterback and tight end, so he was pretty athletic. That grew into a lineman. Yeah. Bear was just coming in.
I remember at one of my first quarterback camps that I ran, Ethan came in as a quarterback. It was like a 7th grade quarterback, and then he turns into a 300-pound, 6'4". Just
You see him now. He's just shredded. He looks awesome. He looks great. So really proud of him. So once I had schools coming in, they're like eyeball tests. Like, oh yeah, coach, these kids are obviously going to be on the radars. And I'll never forget Minnesota came in and Ryan was sitting in the office and they're like, Coach, you said, I think he was a freshman. I think at the time we had him at 6'5", 6'6". He's like, Coach, kind of have him stand up. And he stood up and then Coach went over and walked over and goes, okay, we'll be back in to see. This is before he even played varsity. And so those guys they were born with certain gifts. You know, you don't get to those levels without being born with certain things, and they know that and they're appreciative of it, and they're aware of it. But they have worked extremely hard. I mean, they are not just lucky with when people say they're lucky, they're not lucky. They have earned everything that they
and
got.
I follow both those guys on Twitter, and they're always in the weight room.
Oh.
They're there in the weight room. They're bringing guys, and those are the guys
Yes.
you want around a program.
Yes, those guys
drag other kids in the weight room.
100%. They've done everything we've ever asked. They go and do more. They do all this extra stuff on their own. They're 3.0 plus GPA guys. You know, they're where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, to steal a Coach Kawhi line. You know, they just do everything the right way. They both handled the process the right way. They're very respectful. They both had great support systems with their families. Their families never had any expectations. There were never any certain wants. They just let the process play itself out. And they really both found the best fit for them. They weren't chasing logos. They weren't looking for promises or playing time or expectations. It was, where am I going to fit in the best and have the best experience? And, you know, Ryan landed at Pitt and Ethan at Toledo, and I couldn't be more proud or happy of those two. They did. It was exciting for us as a program, and we've had every school in the country come through the last 4 years, and now they'll continue to come through because we're fortunate to have some guys, you know, to be able to play at that ability. We've got some guys now that are going to get some looks, and they've been out at some visits with Curtis Thomas and Reante Lowry, just to name a couple.
Yeah.
You know, they've already been out to West Virginia and Toledo and Kent. So we're starting to get that traction at North. So it's been fun. It's been exciting. And a lot of people don't like it and the stress and all that, but those two kids made it so darn easy for me. All I had to do was make some phone calls, some emails, and, you know, they handled everything else.
Yeah,
So.
right. Now, I'm going to get into the north-south rivalry. Wilby Eastlake, Eastlake North, or I'm sorry, Wilby South, Eastlake North. I don't know how I messed that up just now. I'm getting excited because this is kind of
Getting fired up.
Yeah, getting fired up over here. There are many things that make this game so dang unique and so dang competitive. You have two high schools in one school district, which is unheard of. Separated by essentially one street a mile long in Som Center 91. The Civil War, the border battle is what it's called now. I will still always call it Civil War. I don't care. Can you talk a little bit about the rivalry, because you've played in it and now you're coaching it? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I think from being a player to where it is now, and this is one that comes up a lot, and I've had a lot of time to actually think about it, that it is really changed over the years. In the fact, so like when I was growing up, and I sound like all the old timers. I don't know how I became that guy at this phase of my career, but so you had like Eastlake baseball, or Eastlake basketball, or Eastlake youth football, and Willoughby had theirs, and Willoughby had theirs, and you had those built-in rivalries as kids, and then you had the middle schools. Nowadays, all these kids, they all play travel together, so they're all friends. They're not competing their whole life. So like when we were growing up, and I don't know if it was exactly the same for you, but
that's the exact same way. That's why I'm getting fired up over
yeah,
here.
we competed against Willoughby and everything. Like, you know, baseball all-stars. It was against Willoughby all-stars. And so you had that. The kids don't have that anymore. The baseball guys are teammates in the summer, but then they compete in high school, and same thing with basketball. And most of our football guys are multi-sport guys, so they play on other teams with the South guys. So it's nice in the fact that we don't really have any issues or problems. We don't have any nonsense going on, I guess. I think there's probably more of it when I was playing in the 80s and 90s. You know, there's a little bit more of animosity. And I don't want to say hate. We didn't hate those guys, but you know that that
Speak
week,
for yourself, Coach.
Yeah, we didn't really.
See, you can't say that because you work.
No, but it's true. Like in social media, they're buddies on social media, and Duff and I laugh because Duff is a good friend. We talk often, and Duff, if you're listening, I know I gotta call you back, so I'll call you back. But our guys, so Ira and Curtis. Ira plays for South and Curtis for us, and Ira's a stud. And those guys would be training and running up at North, and Ira would just come into our coach's office and hang out and give me a hug. And so that dynamic is cool. Like, that's a neat thing. You know, that week, obviously, you know, can't stand South, South can't stand us, and we want to destroy those guys. But outside of that week, we don't have any sayings or paintings, and it's not a district thing. That's just a my philosophy thing. Week 1 is the most important, and then week 2, and we don't get any more points or less points for beating or losing the South, but that week it's a big deal. And it's a huge deal for the community. I mean, we still get 5,000 fans. It's packed. It's sold. This year was sold out. You literally could not get into the stadium, and we didn't lower the numbers because of COVID or restrict anything. So I mean, it was a complete sellout, which was awesome. And Duff and I talk all season long, multiple times throughout the week, and he's a good friend.
That's
we
another
talk
one I actually
football.
want to get on the show too.
Yeah, I mean, Duff's awesome. You know, and I teach in the buildings. I teach in Willoughby Middle, so I'm with Tamba, who's a North alum, but is, you know, coaching at South, and Kyle Men, who I know is a fan of the show, and did some coaching and all those types of things. So I teach with those guys and have a different type of relationship with them. So I know I'm giving you a long-winded answer, but it's not what it was when we were growing up. It's still huge for the community and the parents, and we still have all the rivalry things going on, the pep rally stuff, which drives me crazy. Yeah, it's great for the kids. It stresses me out. But
especially you lose your voice at a pep rally as a coach, then you coach a game. You're like,
yeah, in that game, you obviously want to win it. Yeah. Like, it means more that week. Like, but man, I really want to win that game. I don't want to lose the South and be that guy and that type of thing. So it's huge that week. But for me, there's not much else other than that week, to be honest with you.
When we were kids, like, you just grew up. Like, I had older brothers that did not like South. It was stained into my head growing up. So like, I grew up and I didn't talk to Willoughby South kids, but now it's so different. You mentioned social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. They're always talking.
Yeah,
now.
They're buddies. They're hanging out, which is awesome. You want to see that dynamic. The rivalry's there. Like, that game, it's important for both sides. Like, don't get me wrong. They're friends and they're buddies, but that week they do not want to lose.
It's the bragging rights.
Yeah, and maybe I look at it differently. Maybe because they are friends, maybe it does mean more to those players than maybe I perceive as the coach, because they are close with those guys. Right. They don't want to lose their buddy. Just a different dynamic, but it's still a huge game, and you don't want to lose it.
Yeah. And in 2018, you broke a 16-year streak of losing to South. You beat them in 2018. How special of a moment was that to break that streak?
Yeah, it was
a long time coming.
Yeah, so that at that point, I think that was year 3 or 4 for us when we got it. So we kind of inherited that.
Year 3.
Yeah, so we inherited that. I didn't lose all those. Right. We haven't had much luck against South, but yeah, that was a little bit of a stress. So that one, there was a little bit of stress. Like, boy, we gotta get this thing. We gotta win one of these things, or at least end that. So there was that. So that was a little bit of a relief on that one. Yeah, that was definitely nice to get that one.
And you bring the helmet back, the north-south helmet back to South. How special that was to the players, because that hasn't been done since, I believe it was 2002.
Yeah, so the kids, the school, like everybody, I got a ton of emails from teachers and you know, because they had been there for a long part of that. Some of those teachers for all of those, and so that was fun and exciting. And not only that, but then the next year we ended up, it was a 10-7 game. Then the next game we lost in overtime. So we kind of got that back. This year, Duff took it to us a little bit. So we got to get back on track. But it's become a really competitive game again. So that dynamic's fun. But yeah, bringing the helmet back was fun and exciting. And like I said, probably more so for the kids and the teachers and that type of thing. For me, it was just like a relief. Okay, now I got to get ready for that next game, and let's get back on track here. And
we've talked about this next part before, and I'm not even sure if you're going to be allowed to talk about this or not. And Willoughby Eastlake has school borders between Willoughby and Eastlake. Which kids go to what school? There is a section in the city of Eastlake where they get to pick if they want to go to South or North, even though you live in Eastlake. And that fires me up still to this day. We've talked about this. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm not sure if you're allowed to, but I don't want to put you on the spot either.
Yeah, I'm going to probably avoid all that. But in a nutshell, Yeah, some of the kids have some choices and stuff that's above my pay grade. Like I tell my staff, and even the same exact thing when we were at Gilmore, and I didn't care what school you're at. When people say, like private schools, oh, they recruit, they steal kids. Well, in my mind, I've got to give kids a reason to either come to me if they're a middle school kid or stay with me if they are my kids. So that's one of the things that we talk about as a staff, whether it's a district thing or going to a private school. Like, guys, we got to give them a reason to come here and want to be a part of this. Wins are part of it, but giving the kids a great experience is what they're really after. They want to know you're going to care about them and have fun. And we've been fortunate; our numbers have been pretty good. So we do have a lot of kids involved, and we really don't lose kids, whether it be to another public school or private school. We've been pretty fortunate to keep the majority of our kids. And same thing when we were at Gilmore, if we were going after a kid and he ended up at another school, it wasn't like, oh, that school's like, no, what didn't we do to get that kid? Yeah. What are we missing that to make them want to be a part of this? And it sounds like a PC answer, and partly because those decisions aren't mine to make, but that's also the truth. I mean, we literally have those conversations as a staff, where even if a kid wants to quit, like, I take it personally, like, why didn't we give that kid such a good experience that he wouldn't want to leave, type of thing.
Absolutely.
So I take that stuff a little bit more personal in the sense of, okay, how do I do a better job as a coach and as a person?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're here for the kids, we're coaching
right,
kids.
absolutely.
So why would you want to leave? What did we do that we could have done better?
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
Over your 10-year coaching at North, this is kind of a generic question. What has been your favorite about coaching at North? It could be anything.
Oh, it's the relationships with the kids. I mean, I love being around these guys. I think they know that. I hope they know that. I hope that comes across to them how much I care about them, and not just me, but our staff. Our staff does a great job of building rapport and relationship with the kids. And I still we just had our alumni game a couple weeks ago. We were looking for you.
I couldn't attend, and I'm still undefeated in that game, so I don't care.
You were on the QB1
so
chat with Zane and Tansky and
so
Solik, and
I couldn't make it.
Yeah, so I love that. So getting out there with the guys, and I don't play anymore as an alum. I'm not doing that anymore.
Let's say I think year one that I was
year
there,
one I did.
You're playing for.
Yeah, I'm done doing that. I gotta get up the next day. But I love that. I love seeing what the guys are doing, and I've got Euclid guys. Now they're married and kids, and the guys that are coaching. So some of the guys I coached at Euclid are now in the high school ranks. I've got some of my Gilmore guys are coaching in the college ranks. Ryan Connery's at Cal, and Drew Case is at West Virginia coaching. So it's nice to see that type of thing. I have my son coaching on staff, and all the guys he grew up with that would run around my house when they were little, like Brad Burrows and Kenny Stroud. Those guys are all getting ready to graduate college. And
I'm getting out. You're making me feel
yeah,
good,
see, it happens quick. You don't even know it. You blink of an
I'm
eye.
already going gray. I'm balling.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, just seeing that stuff and seeing guys progress. Like right now, one of our seniors, Lath Assad, who's really working hard in the weight room, and he was a guy as a freshman we were trying to push and motivate, and he's really growing into a leader and putting in some extra time, and now it's his turn to be that senior. And you talked about the recruiting stuff with Ryan graduated early. He'll be taken off the pit here pretty soon, and Spath is now over his injury and getting ready to get going out of Toledo, and not just guys that are involved in football, but like I said, the guys getting married, and Zane still comes over.
Weddings and stuff like
that stuff's awesome. Zane still he does a little side thing where he details boats. So I call him up every spring, and Zane comes over.
Get a free job. Yeah.
I pay him. He's not doing it for free. I'm not going to ask that.
Do it wrong.
But yeah, and Owen Schaefer and Ryan Rowland, that group, and just seeing all these guys out there doing all their stuff, and Logan Shreves, who just ran for city council, and he's running a lot of youth league stuff, and
you're bringing up names that I just haven't seen or haven't run into these guys in a while.
Yeah, the fact that he threw his name in out there and put himself out there to run for city council, and he runs him and his brother do a great job with our youth sports, and he's coaching middle school sports for us and football.
Oh, great. That's great.
Yeah, so that's the stuff that. Is there any one moment that? Not really. If you're strictly talking X's and O's. It's those big moments that you talk about, those big wins and, a beating South type of thing, or making the playoffs and winning in the playoffs. And, those things are fun and exciting, but the more meaningful stuff for those relationships.
All right. As we near the end, Coach Dodd, you will be the fourth person to sign my coach's wall over your right shoulder over
Love
here.
it.
Go ahead and sign that bad boy.
Just anywhere on the wall?
Yep, over there somewhere.
Like
yep.
Creel and Hicks
and yep. And Butch go over there. As I've said in previous shows, each coach that I have on the show will have the opportunity to sign the coach's wall. I also want to thank to all our listeners and viewers to follow our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Before we end the show, Coach, I always end with this question. Who is Coach Dodd for the listeners and viewers who might not know you on a regular basis? Who is Coach Dodd?
Oh, boy, a lot of layers to that one. And different roles, husband, father, teacher, coach. But as a person, hopefully I use this line with the kids a lot and with my staff. I just hope two things, if they ever wanted to put anything on my tombstone, just as far as the coaching side of things, is somebody that really truly cared and somebody that tried really, really hard. Those are two things that I try to take a lot of pride in, that I really truly care about kids, the community that I'm involved in. I care about the game of football and it's played right and hopefully coached right. I'll be judged by that when my career is over, and that nobody can ever say, boy, he was lazy or didn't really try or give effort. I hope the effort, not only me, but our staff, is really kind of shows and is known. And, as far as words, I'm a passionate guy, an intense guy, a resilient guy, and relentless are probably some words that just things I've had to experience through life. Take a great deal of pride in those areas of life. And then some of the negatives, because I think it's important to be able to self-analyze. I'm very impatient and I'm very stubborn. So my family and my coaching staff could probably attest to, I tend to like control a little bit. So I got to work on that a little bit. So my staff, when they chime in, they'll.
I feel like if any of your people on staff became a head coach, I'm sure they would be very, the same way you are. So. Yeah,
you have to have a little bit of that. And I try to be self-aware of those things and work on those things and work on those flaws and acknowledge them. And so that's kind of how I view it. And I'll let everybody else judge it on the outside. But
absolutely. Well, Coach, I thank you again for once being here.
I appreciate it, my friend.
This is the first time I'm announcing it right now after we just sat down with Coach Dodd. Tune in next week for episode 5, The Buzz of the Town. We sit down with Ashtabula Lakeside head football coach, Buzz Edwards. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you later.
The Coach's Approach, a podcast where we sit down with high school coaches and get the cold hard facts about the high school coaching world. This is the Coach's Approach, where we talk X's and O's. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is the Coach's Approach, where we talk the X's and O's. Win the day or dominate the day. The choice is yours.